Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Night was falling on New York, and the city shone like an endless ocean of lights. Atop the Hayes Industries Tower, Jonathan Hayes surveyed the urban landscape from his glass-walled office. The icy wind rushed through the half-open window, swirling the papers on his desk. Jonathan, the charismatic billionaire CEO, was used to this view, the city at his feet, the skyscrapers like silent sentinels, and the reassuring feeling that everything was under control. Yet, behind this mask of power and success, a persistent loneliness gnawed at him. He had learned to distrust people, especially women. Too often, those he met sought the splendor of his wealth, the opulence of his name, or the social recognition he could offer them. He had loved, he had lost, and he had protected himself by erecting walls of mistrust around his heart. That evening, a charity gala awaited him. He was to represent Hayes Industries and its philanthropic works, smiling, speech-ready, while keeping his true self hidden behind the mask of the powerful and self-assured man. When he stepped through the entrance of the brightly lit hall, he had no idea that an encounter was about to change everything. Amidst the elegant crowd, a young woman with gently wavy brown hair and a sincere gaze was bustling about, guiding guests and ensuring everyone felt welcome. She wore a simple dress, devoid of rhinestones or ostentatious embellishments, yet she exuded a natural elegance that effortlessly drew attention. Jonathan tripped slightly on a rug and, instinctively, she caught him. "Mr. Hayes, watch out," she said with a smile that seemed never to fade. He stared at her for a moment, struck by her simplicity and genuine presence. In this world where everything was calculated, where every smile could conceal self-interest, Sophia Bennett, that was her name, seemed different. He couldn't yet tell if she had come for him or simply for her mission, but one thing was clear, she was unlike any woman he had ever met. Deep inside him, a spark ignited. A new curiosity, fragile yet tenacious, awakened. Jonathan didn't want to admit it, but for the first time in a long time, he wondered if love could exist beyond money and power. Sophia, for her part, knew nothing of this inner turmoil, but her gestures, her words, and her gaze would gently shake the walls he had erected around his heart. What neither of them knew yet was that this meeting marked the beginning of a story that would defy prejudice, rumors, and mistrust, revealing that true love often hides behind the most deceptive appearances. The day after the gala, Jonathan couldn't get Sophia's image out of his mind. Every smile, every gesture seemed etched in his memory. Yet, true to his wariness, he refused to let himself be swept away. Women like her, he thought, always had a hidden agenda. Fate, or chance, decided otherwise. In the chic neighborhood of Manhattan, Jonathan was heading to a discreet cafe for a business lunch. The door opened behind him, and to his great surprise, Sophia was standing there, serving customers with a tray full of coffees and muffins. "Sophia?" asked Jonathan, his voice tinged with astonishment. She looked up and smiled. "Oh. Mr. Hayes. I didn't expect to see you here again." He observed her gestures, precise, attentive, but without any ostentation. She addressed each client with respect, not with the calculated smile of executive assistants. Jonathan felt his heart beat a little faster, a reaction he didn't like to admit. I'll have a latte, please." "Of course. Right away." Their eyes met for a moment too long to be purely accidental. Jonathan wanted to detect some interest, some calculation, but he found only sincerity. "Are you here often?" he asked, trying to start a conversation without showing his real curiosity. "No, just to help this cafe raise funds for a local school. We're organizing a small charity event." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. She had nothing to gain from this meeting. No prestige, no material advantage. It was all selfless. "It's impressive," he murmured. She shrugged modestly. "I'm just trying to do what I can." A comfortable silence settled in, strange for Jonathan, who was used to conversations full of flattery and innuendo. Sophia wasn't looking for anything from him, and yet, her presence was strangely comforting. You have a real sense of attention, he said finally, breaking the silence. She smiled, a genuine and warm smile, devoid of judgment or hidden agenda. Thank you, it's just that I believe listening to people and understanding them is worth more than all the gold in the world. Jonathan remained silent, touched despite himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt that an encounter could be pure, without ulterior motives. But he refrained from saying so, maintaining his mask of a wary CEO. As he left the cafe, a persistent thought kept coming back to him: Sophia Bennett was different. And he wanted to find out why. Jonathan couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. Every time he closed his eyes, her simple, sincere smile returned to haunt his thoughts. Yet, his natural distrust, forged by years of experience where wealth and power attracted manipulation, whispered to him, "Be careful, don't be fooled." A few days later, he invited her to lunch, claiming he wanted to thank her for her involvement with the charity cafe. Sophia accepted without hesitation, his soft but firm voice echoing in her mind, "I'll be there. Thank you for including me." At the restaurant, Jonathan sat opposite her, his hands slightly clenched around his napkin. He observed her gestures, her expressions, like a scientist scrutinizing an experimental subject. "So, how long have you been working with children?" he asked, seeking to unravel the authenticity of his motivation. Sophia smiled sincerely. "Ever since I finished university, I've always wanted to do something that really helps, not just something spectacular." Jonathan frowned slightly. Every word seemed honest, every gesture devoid of artifice. But he still refused to believe it. There must be something to hide, think TL. "And you're not looking for anything in return?" "No recognition, no money?" he asked, curious but suspicious. She looked at him, her eyes filled with calm and determination. "I'm not lying, Mr. Hayes. I do what I do because it's right. Not for money, not for prestige." Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. How could she be so sincere, when he had always been surrounded by self-serving people? Yet, he surprised himself by believing her words, if only a little. The meal continued in a strange atmosphere, a mixture of curiosity, mistrust, and fascination. Jonathan wanted to test her intentions, but he didn't have the heart to ask more insistent questions. Sophia seemed transparent, and that bothered him more than he cared to admit. As they left the restaurant, Jonathan walked beside her under the gray Manhattan sky, and a question escaped him aloud. "Why are you different from others?" Sophia looked at him with a slight smile, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Perhaps because I've never needed to prove anything. Perhaps because I still believe that some people can be honest. Even you." Jonathan froze, surprised that his own defenses were so easily recognized. He wanted to reply, but no words came. Sophia had touched a nerve. His heart, long barricaded, was beginning to crack. As they parted ways for the day, a persistent thought settled in his mind: Sophia Bennett wasn't like the others. But was it really possible that she was sincere? And for the first time in a long time, he wanted to discover the truth, even if it meant risking what he had learned to protect most, his heart. In the days that followed, Jonathan couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. He found himself making excuses to see her again, to observe her actions without her noticing. The mistrust persisted, but every little gesture from Sophia seemed to confirm what he both feared and hoped for: she was sincere. One Saturday morning, he decided to go incognito to a community center in the underprivileged neighborhood where Sophia volunteered. Hidden behind a column, he watched her interact with the children. She distributed books and school supplies with a genuine smile, asking the children about their dreams and difficulties, listening attentively and patiently. Jonathan was struck by the gentleness of her gestures, by the energy she put into making these children smile. Here, there was no self-interest, no calculation. She gave without expecting anything in return. A little girl fell while running, stumbling on the sidewalk in the center. Sophia rushed to help her, carefully helping her up and offering a reassuring word. "It's going to be all right, sweetie. No harm done, is it?" Jonathan felt a mixture of admiration and guilt. Everything he had imagined about her vanished in the face of this image, Sophia wasn't interested in his money or his status. She simply loved to help, to love, and to be authentic. After a moment, she noticed Jonathan, who was still standing at a distance. Instead of greeting him enthusiastically or showing any embarrassment, she simply smiled at him. "You came to watch?" she said, in a tone that was both teasing and sincere. Jonathan shrugged, surprised by his frankness. I wanted to see how you work." She laughed softly. "It's simple. If you love children and respect them, they will love you in return. Nothing more." He felt his heart sink. Everything he thought he knew about relationships and women seemed wrong. Sophia wasn't playing a role. She wasn't acting to please him or to get anything. She was simply being herself. Returning to his office that evening, Jonathan realized he had crossed a threshold. His mistrust was beginning to crumble in the face of Sophia's authenticity. But one question remained, deeper than all the others: what if what I feel for her is truly love, but I'm not ready for it yet? A few days after his visit to the community center, Jonathan invited Sophia for a walk in Central Park, enjoying the relative mildness of an autumn afternoon. The trees, with their red and gold leaves, seemed to envelop the city in a cocoon of calm, far from the hustle and bustle and prying eyes. They walked side by side on the paths covered with dead leaves. Jonathan observed Sophia's every gesture, the way she gently touched the leaves, how her eyes lit up when a child passed by with a ball, as if every detail mattered. After a long silence, Sophia turned towards him, her voice lower, almost vulnerable. "You know, I've never had an easy life. My family wasn't rich, and I've had to fight for every opportunity. Sometimes I feel like nobody really sees who I am." Jonathan felt a pang in his heart. He knew that feeling too, that of being judged for what you possess, and not for who you are. "I understand," he said softly. "I, too, always felt that people looked at me for my money or my status, never for who I really am." Sophia looked at him in surprise. "Really? Even you, Jonathan Hayes, the respected billionaire, feel that?" "Yes," he replied, his voice more sincere than it had been in a long time. "There are times when I wonder if someone could love me for who I am, and not for everything I own." A comfortable silence settled, broken only by the rustling of leaves beneath their feet. Then Sophia dared to take another step. "Perhaps we're looking for the same thing, someone who truly sees us, and not just what we have." Jonathan felt his heart warm. Never before had he felt such a connection with someone. This woman, this person, truly saw him. And he, for the first time, wasn't afraid to open up. They continued their walk, sharing stories, fears, and dreams. Sophia spoke of her desire to help children, her small failures, and her determination never to lose her sincerity. Jonathan confided in her his worries, his fear of loneliness, and the difficulty of trusting in a world where everything seems driven by self-interest. At the end of the day, as the sun set behind the skyscrapers, Jonathan realized one thing: he had never been so close to someone, never understood someone so well, and never understood someone so well. Sophia, for her part, felt that she could be herself without a mask, without artifice, and it was a freedom she had never felt before. As they parted, Jonathan almost murmured to himself, "Perhaps, love can exist, even here." And for the first time in a long time, he believed that it was not just a hope, but a real possibility. A few weeks after their walk in Central Park, Jonathan and Sophia had begun seeing each other more regularly. Their dates were simple: coffee, walks, visits to community centers. Nothing ostentatious, nothing calculated. Yet, in Jonathan's world, even these modest gestures never went unnoticed. One morning, while browsing the news online, Jonathan came across an article that sent shivers down his spine. The headline was provocative: "Jonathan Hayes is dating Sophia Bennett to boost his philanthropic image." Jonathan's heart sank. The words were there, accusatory, simplistic, but terribly hurtful. He felt a mixture of anger and frustration rising within him. But what troubled him most was Sophia. How would she react to these accusations? He decided to find her immediately. She was in a small Brooklyn cafe, as usual, chatting with volunteers. When she looked up and saw Jonathan walk in, a genuine smile appeared on her face. "Jonathan. You came," she said, but her expression changed when she saw the serious look on his face. He sat down opposite her and took a deep breath. "Sophia, have you seen the rumors online?" She nodded calmly, without panic or anger. "Yes, I saw them. And you know what? I don't care. People talk, they write what they want. But they know nothing about us." Jonathan looked at her, amazed by her serenity. "But, they're implying that you're with me for the image or the money." Sophia smiled gently, placing her hand on his. "Jonathan, if I were interested in your money, I wouldn't have waited these weeks to truly get to know you. What we have, it's real. And it's worth far more than other people's opinions." Jonathan felt his heart relax. The anger, suspicion, and fear of being wrong had dissipated, replaced by a growing certainty. Sophia was sincere. "You're incredible," he murmured. "I never thought I'd find someone capable of staying so true to themselves in this world." She shrugged modestly. "We all do our best to remain honest, but with you, it's easy. I feel that you truly see me, and not just what I represent." That day, Jonathan understood a crucial truth: rumors and the judgments of others were powerless against a bond founded on sincerity and true love. And he knew that, despite the obstacles and misunderstandings, he was ready to defend what he had found with Sophia. As they left the cafe together, hand in hand, Jonathan felt more alive than ever. For the first time in a long time, he didn't see his world in terms of power or wealth, but in terms of heart and authenticity. A few weeks later, Jonathan was invited to a private party organized by former associates. The event brought together New York's elite, investors, entrepreneurs and influencers from the world of finance and luxury. As he approached the bar to pour himself a drink, he spotted Vanessa Carlyle, an attractive and influential old acquaintance. Vanessa was beautiful, charismatic, and had once been very close to him. But Jonathan had never forgotten that her interest in him had been motivated by his status and wealth. "Jonathan, what a surprise to see you here alone," she said, approaching with a calculated smile. He immediately felt that old shiver of mistrust rising within him. Vanessa placed her hand on his arm, an overtly intimate gesture. "You seem fine, but I wonder if you're truly happy. Perhaps a little female company could brighten things up," she murmured, with a suggestive look. Jonathan felt the temptation to give in to the familiarity and allure of this superficial world, but his mind immediately returned to Sophia. Every little gesture, every sincere smile, every genuine look from Sophia surfaced in his memory. He took a deep breath and stepped back slightly. "Vanessa, I'm not looking for that. What I want is someone real. Someone who sees me for who I am, not for what I have." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, surprised and slightly irritated. "Really? After all this time?" Jonathan looked her straight in the eyes, a quiet determination in his gaze. "Yes. And I found her." At the same moment, her phone vibrated discreetly. It was a message from Sophia. "I was thinking about you, about what you really want. I think you know what's important." A genuine smile appeared on her face. Vanessa understood that she had lost, and withdrew, leaving Jonathan alone in the middle of the crowd. Leaving the party later, Jonathan felt more certain than ever of his feelings. No wealth, no power, no past seduction could rival the truth of the love he felt for Sophia. This ordeal confirmed one essential thing for him: he was no longer alone in this world, and his heart now belonged to someone who truly loved him. For Jonathan, it was time to confirm what he felt deep down. He organized a lavish dinner in his penthouse, not to impress Sophia, but to observe her reaction to the opulence he had always possessed. The soft lighting reflected off the glass and marble of the living room, and exquisite dishes awaited on the long table. When Sophia entered, she glanced discreetly around the room, then turned her attention to Jonathan with a genuine smile. "It's magnificent, but you know I came for you, not for this scenery." Jonathan felt his heart sink. He had planned this evening to test her, to see if her image of a luxurious world could dazzle her or distract her from what truly mattered. But Sophia, true to form, spoke with honesty. Dinner began. Jonathan watched Sophia intently. She complimented the chefs on the quality of the food, but spent most of her time listening to the guests' stories, laughing at their anecdotes, and asking sincere questions about their lives. At no point did she show the slightest interest in the money or luxury around them. At the end of the meal, Jonathan stepped forward, placing his hand on hers. Sophia. I had to know. What I'm feeling, is it real? Are you really, you? Sophia looked him straight in the eyes, a spark of determination and tenderness in her gaze. Jonathan. I am exactly me. And you are exactly what I love. Your money, your power, none of that matters to me. What I want is you. Nothing more. A wave of relief and happiness washed over Jonathan. After years of mistrust, loneliness, and doubt, he had found someone who loved him for who he was, not for what he possessed. For the first time, he let his guard down. He took her hand and whispered, I think I love you, Sophia. And I think I can finally believe that it's mutual. She smiled, a smile that lit up the room more than all the lights around them. And I love you too, Jonathan. That evening, in the complicit silence of their bond, Jonathan understood a truth that no amount of wealth could buy. True love is not measured in dollars, but in sincerity and trust. Shortly after their dinner, Sophia told Jonathan that her father, Robert Bennet, wanted to meet him. Jonathan immediately felt a pang of concern. Robert was a rigid, protective man, and deeply skeptical of anything related to wealth and power. They met in a small cafe in the residential area of Sophia. Robert, a man in his 50s, with piercing eyes and an imposing presence, stood up to greet Jonathan with a firm handshake. Jonathan Hayes. I suppose you know why I wanted to see you. His voice was calm but firm, each word carefully weighed. Jonathan nodded, trying to hide his anxiety. Yes, Mr. Bennet. I understand your concerns, and I'm ready to answer your questions. Robert observed Jonathan intently, as if trying to read every hidden intention behind his gaze. Then, without hesitation, he asked. Why Sophia? Why her and not another woman more, suited to your world? Jonathan took a deep breath and answered sincerely. Because she's different. She's authentic, generous, and she saw me for who I truly am, not for what I possess. She made me understand that true love exists, and that I don't need wealth or status to be loved. Robert stared at him, evaluating every word, every nuance. Then he asked one last, incisive question. What if things got difficult? What if money, power, or rumors came into play? Would you remain true to her? Jonathan looked him straight in the eyes, without hesitation. Yes. Absolutely. Sophia is important to me, more than anything else. If I had to choose between my empire and her, I would choose her without hesitation. Robert's face relaxed slightly. He sensed the sincerity in Jonathan's voice and gaze. Finally, he reached out to shake her hand. Very well. I believe you are sincere. Take care of her. She deserves someone genuine. Sophia, who had watched the scene with emotion, smiled shyly and approached to take her father's hand. Jonathan looked at her, touched by the strength of the family bond and the trust that had just been placed in her. That day, Jonathan understood that true love is not measured only by romantic gestures, but also by the ability to overcome obstacles and gain the trust of those you love. Leaving the cafe, hand in hand with Sophia, Jonathan felt a new milestone had been reached. They could now face the world together, with sincerity and determination. A few weeks after Robert Bennet's approval, Jonathan and Sophia seemed invincible. Yet, the outside world had its own agenda. The media, always hungry for scandal, continued to speculate about their relationship, insinuating that Sophia was interested in Jonathan's fortune. One morning, while they were having coffee in a busy area, a journalist suddenly approached, microphone and camera in hand. Miss Bennet, Mr. Hayes, is it true that your relationship is just a publicity stunt? Jonathan felt his blood boil, but he remained calm. Sophia, on the other hand, showed no fear. Her gaze was clear and determined. No, Sophia replied firmly. What we have is real. It's neither a game nor a strategy. We love each other for who we are, not for what we possess. Jonathan leaned slightly towards her and added. And I stand by every word. Sophia is the most sincere person I have ever met, and I am proud to be by her side. The journalist, surprised by their confidence and authenticity, stepped back, unable to find a flaw. After this incident, Jonathan and Sophia retreated to a quiet park. Jonathan took Sophia's hand and whispered. Every day, I am impressed by your strength. No matter what the world says or thinks, you remain yourself, and that's what I love most about you. Sophia smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. And you, Jonathan, you're the first person who truly saw me. Not for what I've done, not for what I represent, but for me. That makes me stronger. That day, Jonathan understood a profound truth. True love is not measured by rumors, judgments, or wealth, but by sincerity, respect, and mutual trust. They had overcome the trials of mistrust, prejudice, and temptation. Their bond, forged in authenticity and sincere love, was now unbreakable. As they walked hand in hand, Jonathan felt free for the first time in a long time. Free to open up, free to love, and above all, free to believe that Sophia Bennet was truly his love. Winter was approaching in New York, covering the city with sparkling lights and a magical atmosphere. Jonathan and Sophia stood in the lobby of the Metropolitan Museum, guests at a philanthropic gala organized to celebrate the charitable work of Hayes Industries and Sophia with underprivileged children. That evening, the whole city seemed to reflect their happiness, the smiles of the guests, the admiring glances, but above all the strong and sincere bond that united them. Jonathan watched Sophia, radiant in her simple yet elegant dress. He remembered the first day he'd seen her serving coffee in that small Brooklyn cafe. And now, she shone naturally, true to herself. Sophia, he murmured, approaching her and tenderly taking her hand. I want the whole world to know what we have. I want no one to doubt your sincerity, or mine. Sophia smiled, touched, and placed her hand on his cheek. Jonathan, I never wanted fame or recognition. I just wanted you. And you stayed true to yourself, even amidst all the turmoil. At that moment, Robert Bennet and Sophia's mother appeared, smiling and moved. Their eyes shone with pride, silent witnesses to the strength and authenticity of their bond. Jonathan took a deep breath and did something he had never done before. He took Sophia by the hand and, in front of all the guests, said in a clear and strong voice. What we have is not a game, nor a strategy. Sophia Bennet is the most sincere and incredible person I have ever met. And I am honored that she shares her life with me. A respectful silence followed, then the guests burst into applause. Sophia, moved, felt tears welling up in her eyes. She squeezed Jonathan's hand, and in that simple yet meaningful gesture, everything was said: trust, love, and loyalty. Later, as they walked hand in hand under the twinkling lights of Central Park, Jonathan whispered. I never believed that love could be so real, but you, Sophia, have proven to me that it was possible. She leaned towards him and replied softly. And you showed me that wealth and power mean nothing compared to what is shared from the heart. Their breath mingled in the cold air, but their hearts burned with warmth and truth. That night, New York shone not only for its lights and luxury, it shone for the authentic, sincere and triumphant love of Jonathan and Sophia. And in that certainty, they knew that nothing, neither the world, nor rumors, nor temptations, could ever shake what they had built together. Love had triumphed. And it was real.